Discover the incredible moment when her hidden compliment transformed his life forever. The bell above the diner door jingled as Ethan stepped in, feeling the weight of the long day in every bone. The warm aroma of fresh coffee and sizzling bacon enveloped him, a stark contrast to the cool metal and grease of the shop he'd worked in for hours. Yet even surrounded by the comforting smells of home-cooked meals, a heavy fog pulled at his heart. He slid into a booth, his mind consumed with the thoughts that had shadowed him all evening. Should he follow his dream of enrolling in the automotive engineering program or continue to bury himself in the responsibilities of the shop his father had left him? He had responsibilities, bills to pay, customers depending on him. But what about his dreams? As if reading his mind, Sarah, the town nurse with a reputation for kindness, unexpectedly took a seat across from him. Fresh from her shift, she brightened the dreary diner. "Hey," she said, her eyes sparkling, "I just wanted to say, the way you help everyone here, it really matters. You have such potential, Ethan." Her words crashed over him like a summer wave, washing away the layers of self-doubt that had settled like dust on his dreams. He could feel the familiar knots in his stomach tighten, a mixture of hope and fear spiraling out of control. Could it be true? Did he really have potential? The question clung to him, sparking a flicker of something deep within, something he thought he'd lost. He suddenly felt his excessive routine squeezing the air from his lungs. Obligation hung heavily over him, casting a shadow darker than the diner's dim lights. Could he afford to risk everything for a plunge into his passion? The thought made his hands tremble slightly. He took a sip of his coffee, bitter and hot, like the choices simmering in his mind. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Ethan stepped outside, Sarah's words trailing behind him, igniting something buried within. He considered night classes, juggled schedules, imagined innovations, all while wielding a wrench in the grease-stained chaos of the shop. But lurking around every corner was Jack Slick, confident, a rival mechanic who snapped at the heels of his revived ambition. Jack's rumors snaked through the town, targeting his expertise, mocking his limitations, piercing through Ethan's armor. Each taunt felt like a punch to the gut, fueling insecurities he tried so desperately to silence. That afternoon, standing outside the diner, the air pulsed with tension. Ethan fought fury and fear, battling the ghosts of family loyalty that whispered in his ear, urging him to uphold the legacy. "You want to talk about potential?" he challenged, voice trembling. The air was thick with aggression, an emotional storm brewing as Jack's smirk twisted away any last vestiges of respect. Ethan felt himself spiraling, each word from Jack hammering down on his resolve like a wrestling match against fate. In that anguish, Ethan stood at the brink, a tightrope walker caught in between ambition and obligation, with every decision poised to unravel or elevate all that he had known and hoped for. The diner buzzed around him, yet silence was his only companion. How could one innocent compliment from Sarah carry the weight to shift the trajectory of his life? In that moment, Ethan realized that the battle was only beginning. Ethan paced along the cracked pavement outside the diner, the warm glow spilling from its windows doing little to illuminate the turbulence within him. The weight of Jack's derision lingered, as if a fog had rolled in to shroud his thoughts. Every encounter with Jack left him questioning his abilities, amplifying the belief that perhaps he was just a mechanic, nothing more. But wasn't there a spark inside him waiting to be ignited? He whispered to himself, "What do I really want?" The question echoed in the silent air, demanding an answer from the depths of his restless heart. If he were being honest, it was the thrill of engineering, the excitement of creating, designing, solving problems that he yearned for. Yet here he was, stuck in the familiar rhythm of the shop, surrounded by the equipment his father had entrusted to him. A legacy and anchor, yet also a chain binding him to a destiny he hadn't chosen. His phone vibrated violently in his pocket, the sound jolting him from his spiraling thoughts. He pulled it out and saw a notification: enrollment for the automotive program next semester ends in 1 week. His heart raced. A practical decision waiting at his fingertips, yet the specter of Jack's mocking laughter echoed in his mind, dampening the flicker of courage ignited by Sarah's compliment. Instinctively, Ethan set the phone down, turning his gaze toward the horizon where the sun dipped behind a layer of gray clouds. A storm was brewing not just in the sky, but in him. He felt the urge to hide away, to retreat into the comfort of his current life, but the siren song of potential called to him louder than ever. Determined to act, he shoved the phone back into his pocket and made his way to the shop. He needed a plan. A vision. As he entered, the familiar chaos enveloped him: customers chatting, mechanics shouting over engines, metal clanging against metal. But instead of feeling suffocated, he felt the exhilarating pulse of possibility. Through the din, he wandered to his workspace, where tools hung meticulously on the wall, each one a testament to his capabilities. He reached for a wrench, turning it over in his hand. This simple tool, a lifeline to his passion, had been more than just an object. It represented solutions, creativity, and the promise of innovation. Suddenly, he envisioned himself not merely fixing cars but designing machines and dreamy concepts that could change the world of automotive engineering. Fueled by inspiration, he grabbed a notebook from his desk and began drafting ideas: sketches of an innovative fuel-efficient engine, diagrams that danced with possibilities. The lines flowed from his mind with newfound clarity, brightening his outlook as if the clouds were parting in his mind, allowing rays of insight to seep through. But every stroke of the pen was tempered by another truth: time was slipping away. The deadline loomed, and Jack's derisive challenge still echoed in his consciousness. Doubt threatened to reclaim its territory. Could he juggle both the shop and his passions? Was it all just a fleeting fantasy? Pushing through the negative thoughts, he reminded himself of Sarah's words: "You have such potential." Could it be real? Was it time to trust in his abilities, to take a leap into the unknown? As the sun set outside, casting ingenious streaks of orange and pink across the sky, Ethan realized that the only chain binding him was the one he fastened himself. That thought settled deep, forging a spark of resolve. The decision awaited him: to step away from the comfortable but stifling life in the shop or face the frustrations and fears, embracing the uncertainty of growth. With adrenaline coursing through him, Ethan made his way to the shop's office to retrieve the enrollment form sitting in a dusty pile. But as he reached for it, a sudden commotion drew his focus. Jack stood with a group of local mechanics, and the unmistakable air of competition hung over them, a palpable reminder of what was at stake. Ethan felt his heart pound, facing an unexpected confrontation. No longer just a spectator, he was about to step into the ring, fully aware of what his dreams could cost him. The time had come to face not only Jack, but the very fears that had held him back. As he took a breath, steadying himself for the encounter, the choice echoed in his mind. Embrace the legacy, or forge his own path. Either way, it was time to act. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as he steeled himself against the momentum of his racing heart. Jack was surrounded by a cadre of smug faces, confidence radiating from each one, like a pack of wolves daring an intruder. They were all there as witnesses to both a challenge and an opportunity, the moment when Ethan could start to reshape how he viewed himself. That he took a step forward, the weight of the decision heavy on his shoulders. Every fiber of his being screamed for retreat, yet another voice urged him forward. He was not just confronting Jack, but the long-standing narrative that had relegated him to mere mechanic status. "Hey, Ethan. You here to finally admit that you're just not cut out for this?" Jack's voice sliced through the droning noise of the shop, drawing the attention of nearby mechanics. Laughter erupted, but this time, Ethan didn't flinch. Fueled by something unshakable, he decided he wouldn't let Jack dictate his worth any longer. "Actually," Ethan began, his voice stronger than he expected. "I'm here to sign up for the automotive program. I'm ready to be more than just a mechanic." The declaration echoed in the sudden silence, the laughter fading as surprise washed over the group. Jack smirked, but his laughter was tinged with a hint of doubt. "You think just taking a class is going to change anything? You'll always be stuck in the little shop, Ethan. Just face it. Something within Ethan snapped. It wasn't just Jack's words, it was the culmination of years of feeling inferior. You can keep your narrow view, Jack. I might work here, but I'm more than just this place. I'm going to learn, innovate, and create things you can't even dream of. With every phrase, the confidence inside him grew, shedding layers of self-doubt. It was exhilarating. The community felt alive, and for the first time, they were witnessing not just a confrontation, but a critical turning point. The silent witnesses looked on, some with curiosity, others with skepticism, but all were captivated by Ethan's burgeoning assertiveness. Jack's smirk faltered, replaced by vestiges of uncertainty. "We'll see how far that takes you," he muttered, attempting to reclaim his bravado. But Ethan was no longer the young man trembling before Jack's shadow. "I'll show you, Jack. Not for you, but for myself." Leaving that confrontation standing in the air, Ethan turned to his workspace. The worn-out tools, the grease-stained workbench, they all seemed to whisper encouragement now. He clutched the enrollment form, heart racing with possibility, and realized that this was just the beginning. Each calculated risk he was taking was stitching a new fabric of himself, one that didn't just rely on family legacy but was woven from his own aspirations. Determinedly, he began to outline a more concrete plan, not just for the enrollment but for how he would balance his new studies and shop responsibilities. Each thought fueled a burgeoning fire, setting his mind racing with possibilities. Late-night study sessions, practical applications during work hours, the blending of theory and practice. For the first time, he could practically see a future filled with creativity and meaningful work. No longer restrained by limitations, he wanted to innovate. Ideas flooded his mind: electric solutions, soft compounds, renewable energy experiments. Yet, as he scribbled notes, a nagging fear lingered in the recesses of his thoughts. What if this ambition pushed the boundaries of his relationships, altering the dynamic he deconstructed in the workshop? He paused, looking around the busy shop, the familiar faces of his co-workers evoking suddenly complex emotions. Would they support him in his pursuit, or would Jack's cynicism spread like a virus among them? Ethan's heart began to pound again, but this time it was a building anticipation, the kind that reminded him he was still in the process of becoming. He flipped the enrollment form over, glancing at his plans for the future, a path illuminated not just by dreams but now backed by determination. As he folded the form and tucked it in his back pocket, one thing became clear: he was on the edge of something transformative, ready to leap into a realm where he could architect his own destiny. With resolve igniting within him, he wondered what other surprises awaited as he started down this new path. The moment of change had arrived, but what awaited him on the horizon? As the sun sank below the horizon, casting a warm golden hue over the shop, Ethan felt the exhilaration of possibility enveloping him like a comforting embrace. He was ready to redefine who he was, but the weight of uncertainty still loomed large. The enrollment form in his pocket burned with promise, yet questions curled around his mind like smoke. Did he truly have what it took to excel beyond the grease-slicked floors of the workshop? He could hear the distant laughter of his colleagues, the familiar banter weaving through the sounds of tools clinking and engines revving. This was his space, suffused with familiarity, yet he felt like a stranger within it. He glanced sideways at his fellow mechanics, the life choices they had made, their loyalties tethered to the shop. Each interaction held layers of camaraderie, but also an undercurrent of fear that he might disrupt the delicate balance he had known. "Hey, Ethan!" A voice cut through his contemplation, a jovial shout from Mark, one of the shop's senior mechanics, whose laid-back demeanor radiated ease. "What has got you looking like you're about to fly away?" Ethan hesitated, the truth teetering on his lips, but something held him back. It was too soon to reveal his ambitions, too soon to invite judgment. Instead, he shrugged casually, feigning nonchalance. "Just thinking about a few ideas for the shop. You know how it is." Mark raised an eyebrow, his gaze scrutinizing but kind. "Anything I can help with? You know I'm always down for some brainstorming." Ethan felt a swell of gratitude toward his colleague. It was gestures like these that reminded him there were allies in the arena, even if they didn't yet know about his ambition. "Actually, yeah. "I've been tossing around some ways we could increase efficiency with new tech," he replied, surprising himself with the willingness to share. The conversation took off, Ethan's excitement bubbling to the surface as he discussed innovative tools and techniques. Mark nodded enthusiastically, and Ethan could see the spark igniting in his eyes. Maybe this was a way to bridge the gap between his evolving dreams and the reality of the workshop, the beginning of cultivating support instead of skepticism. As they wrapped up, Ethan felt buoyed by the exchange. It was a brief moment of connection, grounding him amidst his swirling ambitions. Yet doubt still lingered. Would they see his newfound aspirations as a betrayal or an asset? Jack's skepticism echoed in his mind, but he brushed it aside with each conversation, each exchange where he dared to dream out loud. In the following days, the excitement that bubbled within him transformed into tangible actions. He enrolled in the automotive program, diving headfirst into complex theories of design and engineering. He spent late nights at the library, running through pages of material until his eyes blurred with fatigue. The classroom was a realm of challenge, yet he found beauty in the struggle, relishing the opportunity to learn, to expand his knowledge. But growth often comes with discomfort, and as the lessons advanced, Ethan encountered personal obstacles he hadn't foreseen. Balancing work with classwork became a test of his resolve. He could feel the burden of expectations piling onto his shoulders, not just from his own ambitions but also from his coworkers. Would they hold him accountable to their understanding of him, or had he crafted an image that allowed for change? Late one evening, while reviewing his notes, he received a surprising message from Mark. "Let's grab coffee tomorrow, I'd like to hear more about your ideas." It was just coffee, yet an unexpected thrill coursed through him. This simple gesture was supportive, even encouraging. Was he carving a niche for innovation in a world steeped in routine? As he prepared for the conversation, a stinging realization set in. Ethan wasn't just stepping into a new role, he was becoming someone unrecognizable, shattering perceptions that had long held him captive. It was exhilarating and terrifying, but it would require him to stay true to himself. Ethan stared at the open book on his desk and thought about the path ahead. The stakes were high, but so too was the thrill of discovery. He glanced at the clock and felt a tingling anticipation bubbling up again. The turning point was near, but as the horizon beckoned, a dark cloud loomed. Jack's voice echoed in his mind like a warning bell. What if he couldn't navigate this new landscape? What if the relationships he cherished would fray under the weight of ambition? The moment to confront these realities was fast approaching. With newfound determination, he prepared himself for tomorrow. What truth would tomorrow reveal? How would he face both the expectations of others and the evolving identity he sought to embrace? The next morning began with tendrils of dawn sneaking through Ethan's window, wrapping around him like an embrace filled with both promise and trepidation. He dressed deliberately, each article of clothing serving as an armor against the weight of doubt. He practiced his thoughts while brushing his teeth, framing ideas and potential responses to Mark's inquiries like he was preparing for a critical inspection of a vehicle. As he walked into the coffee shop, familiar scents mingled with the buzzing chatter of patrons, a small, cozy enclave that felt worlds apart from the grease-stained sanctuary of the workshop. The bell above the door chimed as he entered, signaling his arrival, and he scanned the room for Mark. There he was, sitting at a corner table, a steaming cup cradled in his hands and a genuine smile lighting his face. Ethan's heart raced, the anticipation flooding him with a mix of excitement and anxiety. He settled into the seat across from Mark, their usual banter simmering beneath the surface. "Good to see you, Ethan," Mark said, his eyes keen and encouraging. "Excited to hear about what you've been working on." Ethan nodded, suddenly aware of the pressure of opening up about his aspirations. This wasn't just casual brainstorming, this was a leap and unveiling of his deeper self. He drew in a breath and began, his words flowing cautiously at first. He spoke about efficiency improvements, about reviewing the tools they used, and integrating technology he'd learned. Mark's engagement remained steady, encouraging Ethan to expand on ideas, and with each passing moment, Ethan felt the weight of his self-doubt lighten. Then came the crucial moment, describing a project idea he'd dreamt of since the first day of class. "Imagine a system where we can track vehicle diagnostics in real time, allowing us to respond to problems before they become critical," he suggested, passion igniting his tone. Mark leaned in, excitement radiating from him. "Now that's an idea that could transform how we handle repairs. We could save time and make our jobs easier." The enthusiasm in Mark's voice was a lifeline, lifting Ethan's spirits and solidifying his resolve. However, amidst the thrill of connection came a fleeting shadow of apprehension. What if the others at the shop didn't share Mark's enthusiasm? What if Jack saw this leap as Ethan distancing himself from their shared history? The internal conflict was palpable, gnawing at the edges of his newfound confidence. Mark seemed to sense Ethan's unease. "You know, change can be scary, especially in a place like the shop where routines are well set. But those who dare to innovate help us all grow. I believe in your vision." Swallowing hard, Ethan felt his confidence battle with the nagging doubt. Was he really ready to take on that mantle? The escalation of expectations loomed large. Could he face the skepticism of others? As they wrapped up their coffee, Mark leaned back, looking thoughtfully at Ethan. "You've got something special, Ethan. If you don't push for it, who will?" The words resonated within him, a challenge cloaked in encouragement. With goodbyes exchanged, Ethan stepped back into the bustling street, the weight of introspection heavier than ever. The conversation had illuminated a path, but he could see storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Beneath the prospect of innovation lay a buried fear: would he be capable of transforming the shop, or would he falter under the weight of expectation? As he made his way to the workshop, thoughts raced through his mind. What would it mean to lead others? What if he failed? The truth was unavoidable: he couldn't retreat to comfort without forfeiting his dreams. Each step heightened the stakes. A crossroads had been reached. Tomorrow would bring the first team meeting since his conversation with Mark. The weight of his aspirations pressed down, yet the thrill beckoned like a siren call. He resolved that he would share his ideas, confront both enthusiasm and opposition head-on. But as he neared the workshop, another question crept in, a dark specter of doubt, lingering just out of sight. Would his colleagues welcome a change, or would they see him as a traitor to the established way? The time had come to confront reality and carve his place, but would he find support or face hostility? The moment of truth lingered ahead, and uncertainty twisted within him. What reaction awaited him in the workshop, and would his ambitions endure the crucible of scrutiny? Ethan stood outside the workshop, his pulse quickening as he took in the familiar yet intimidating facade. The dim light barely cut through the greasy windows, hints of his usual working environment barely visible. He could hear the faint clanging of tools and the soft hum of machinery, a symphony of comfort and chaos that had both defined and constrained him. He cleared his throat, the taste of uncertainty bitter on his tongue. The morning light, which had felt so inviting earlier, now seemed like a harsh spotlight, amplifying his insecurities. He had envisioned this moment, the first team meeting since discussing his ideas with Mark, but now it felt more like a stage set for a tragedy rather than an opportunity for growth. A wave of anxiety washed over him. Could he articulate his vision clearly? Would his colleagues listen with open minds, or would they dismiss him as a naive dreamer? Pushing the door open, the smell of oil and metal enveloped him, grounding him in reality. The workshop buzzed with energy, the familiar faces of his coworkers were woven into the fabric of his life. Nonetheless, they were strangers to the Ethan who had just met with Mark. Adopting a posture of determination, he approached the gathering of employees milling around the tool bench. "Morning, everyone." Ethan's voice emerged, steadier than he felt. "I'd like to discuss some ideas I've been working on, related to our workflow efficiency." Silence filled the space, heavy with expectation. Jack, his longtime ally but fierce critic, finally turned, arms crossed, an eyebrow arched skeptically. "Oh. What's the latest pitch, Ethan? More tech stuff?" His tone dripped with sarcasm, a challenge wrapped in friendly banter that Ethan had grown too familiar with. Ethan squared his shoulders, feeling the heat of self-doubt rising. "Actually, I think we can make our jobs easier. I've been thinking about a system for real-time vehicle diagnostics." Before he could build on the idea, a chorus of laughter met his revelation. It wasn't just Jack, a few others snickered, their disbelief palpable. Ethan's stomach dropped, humiliation threatening to root him in place. Real-time diagnostics? Jack mocked. What's next, sending the cars to talk to you? You know, it might just be easier to, I don't know, fix the damn things the old way. The weight of their derision stung. Just as fear threatened to overtake him, he remembered Mark's words, urging him to push for change even in the face of resistance. Ethan inhaled deeply, recalling the flicker of passion that had ignited during his conversation with Mark. A pulse of resolve surged through him. I know it might sound far-fetched, Ethan replied, his voice gaining momentum, but think about it. If we could catch issues before they escalate, what would that mean for our efficiency? Less downtime, happier customers. It's more than just tech, it's about making our work better for all of us. The laughter died down, replaced by murmurs and exchanged glances. Though it was still tinged with skepticism, Ethan felt a shift. His colleagues were listening, at least. Unpacking his thoughts further, he detailed potential tasks the system could streamline, even suggesting a pilot project that would require minimal investment but could yield tremendously. As he spoke, confidence wove itself tightly around his words. He sensed a change in the atmosphere, he could see minds flickering to life, a reluctant curiosity taking hold. Jack remained unimpressed, but the tension in the room was undeniable. With martial precision, Ethan concluded, this isn't about abandoning what works, it's about enhancing it. I know change is scary, but isn't aiming for better worth the risk? The silence that followed was deafening, punctuated only by the sound of Ethan's own heartbeat. Would they dismiss him again, or had he cracked the facade just enough to expose possibility? Then Sarah, a mostly quiet voice in their ranks, spoke up. What if we gave it a shot? Just to see how it goes. There it was, the first glimmer of support, the seed of acceptance that Ethan desperately needed, but even as a small wave of hope surged through him, Ethan felt the watchful eyes of Jack sizing him up, assessing a challenge to the status quo. Would that spark of support be enough to rally the others, or would internal dissent crush his budding initiative? Feeling the burgeoning weight of expectation both from his peers and himself, Ethan knew the coming days would be pivotal. The workshop, fraught with uncertainty, had transformed into a battleground for his ambitions. What awaited him now was a renegotiation of trust and belief in his vision and ultimately, in himself. He knew he needed to prepare for what lay ahead, not just the potential of success, but the inevitability of defensiveness and conflict. Ethan's resolve stiffened as he wrestled with the reality, the fight for innovation had just begun. But would he be the catalyst for change, or would he remain confined to the shadows of doubt? The workshop stood before him, full of uncharted land, and he was about to take the first steps. Would he be ready for the trials that came with leadership? The true test was yet to unfold. Ethan left the workshop that day, his mind swirling with conflicting emotions: excitement, trepidation, and a healthy dose of self-doubt. The seed of his idea had taken root, but he couldn't shake the feeling that cultivating it would demand more than mere enthusiasm. The quiet foundation of support offered by Sarah might have lit a flicker of hope, but Jack's skepticism loomed larger than life, a specter he couldn't easily dismiss. The fear of failure gnawed at him. What if, in his efforts to pull everyone forward, he ended up isolating himself instead? As he walked home, the familiar streets blurred together in a fog of uncertainty. Every car that rolled by became a reflection of his inner landscape: efficient, sleek, yet mechanically dependent. Suddenly, the comparison struck him: like those vehicles, his growth depended on a dependable engine. He began to realize what he lacked: a network of allies who understood the nuances of innovation. Determined to bolster his position, Ethan decided he needed to connect with the team after hours, inviting them over for a casual brainstorming session. No easy feats within a culture resistant to change, he knew he had to create a safe haven for honest dialogue. He crafted a message that balanced informality with an undertone of professionalism, aiming to harness the curiosity that had tentatively surfaced during the meeting. Hey team, I'm hosting a small get-together this Friday evening. Let's grab some snacks and talk about the potential changes we discussed. Bring your ideas, no pressure. He hesitated before hitting send, wondering if he was pushing too hard. But the notion of empowerment buoyed him. Would they see his initiative as a threat or as an invitation? What if they felt trapped by their own established rituals? The day dragged on until Friday arrived, and Ethan set to transforming his modest apartment into a welcoming space. He stocked up on snacks and soft drinks, trying to summon the old warmth of camaraderie that had once united them in shared goals. As the clock struck 7, familiar faces trickled in. Laughter broke the ice, and Ethan felt the weight on his shoulders ease a fraction. Despite the lingering skepticism, he sensed a willingness in the room and openness to the idea of change. "All right, everyone," Ethan called out, trying to sound confident. "Let us dive in. I want to hear your thoughts on real-time diagnostics." The chatter quieted as he presented his ideas better defined than before. As he detailed the functionality and benefits, he observed a gradual shift. Questions sparked debates, concerns surfaced, yet the climate of the conversation remained surprisingly constructive. With every challenge thrown his way, Ethan responded thoughtfully, drawing on both logic and emotion to validate his vision. Jack entered the discussion, his tone noticeably softer. "So you think this will actually save us time?" "I mean, we all want that, but it sounds complicated." Ethan was quick to address him, his pulse racing but steady. "Complicated now, but not once we set it up. We'd be proactive instead of reactive. Less pressure on all of us in the long run." After much deliberation, one of the newer team members, an enthusiastic character named Marco, chimed in. "I'm actually interested in trying out some technology before dismissing it completely. Maybe we should experiment." As the wave of agreement washed over the room, Ethan could hardly contain his excitement. This felt like a turning point. They were starting to build a collective ambition stemming from his original vision, something deeper than he had anticipated. Yet, beneath the euphoria, something gnawed at his confidence. What if this victory was just a facade? Would they truly follow through, or was this merely a fleeting moment of excitement? When the gathering started to wind down, Marcus pulled Ethan aside. "Hey, man, I can tell you've got a passion for this. Just be prepared, there will be pushback. Change is rare without some friction." Those words drilled into him. As supportive as the team had been, he knew that resistance was inevitable. Once again, his thoughts turned to Jack, still a formidable presence within the ranks. How far would his skepticism reach? Ethan danced between exhilaration and anxiety as he ventured into deeper waters, recognizing that the challenge ahead would test not only their concept but also his commitment to leadership. Would he survive the turbulence? The next meeting dawned with unyielding uncertainty both for him and for the project. Would he falter when doubled down by doubt? He wasn't just fighting for his proposal anymore, he was standing at the precipice of his own development. The door of opportunity was only beginning to crack open. A showdown with the uncertainty of Jack's influence loomed on the horizon, and Ethan was about to discover whether he possessed the fortitude to transform his passion into reality. Would he rise to the occasion, or would Jack's doubt suffocate his dreams just as they had in the past? Ethan's heart raced as the meeting time approached, each tick of the clock amplifying his mounting anxiety. He carefully arranged his notes, scanning through his carefully crafted points, but doubt seeped in like a slow poison. Was this enough? Should he have prepared a visual presentation, or perhaps gathered data points to support his claims? He steeled himself against the voice in his head that whispered he was a fraud, and prepared for the tide of uncertainty that Jack would likely unleash. As the team filed into the conference room, their chatter buzzed like a swarm of indecipherable thoughts around Ethan's mind. He greeted each member with determined vigor, but every handshake felt like an electrifying jolt, a reminder of the stakes at hand. "Thank you all for coming today," he began, forcing a smile despite the clenching in his stomach. "I'm excited to discuss our approach and clarify some of the ideas we explored together." He launched into his presentation, purposefully keeping his tone steady. "Real-time diagnostics could reduce our downtime significantly. The words echoed back at him, each one carrying a weight he hadn't anticipated, featuring a mix of curiosity and skepticism. The room's attention flickered between him and the metrics on the screen. As illustrated data swirled before him, he could feel Jack's steel-like gaze honing in, testing for vulnerabilities. "Ethan, where's the evidence this will actually improve efficiency?" Jack challenged, his questioning voice sharp as glass. Ethan inhaled, reminding himself this moment was not merely a performance, it was an opportunity to forge a vision into a shared reality. "Jack, I understand your concern. Right now, we operate reactively. That creates bottlenecks. The data shows that with proactive measures, we could not only save time but also minimize stress on our resources." Jack leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, eyes harboring deep skepticism. The familiar tension enveloped the room, and Ethan realized he needed to shift the dynamics. "What if we tackle this together?" he proposed, his voice steadying in an unexpected surge of confidence. "Let us conduct a pilot test with a couple of projects. We can gather actual feedback and adjust accordingly." Questions flew, challenges persisted, but for the first time, Ethan felt buoyed by the collective dialogue. Marco's earlier enthusiasm sparked a chain reaction. "I'll volunteer for the pilot," he declared, eyes gleaming with possibility. Ethan's pulse quickened. This was it. The slivers of doubt he had nurtured for so long began to splinter. "All right, let us create a small team. I'll lead, and we'll collect data that showcases the difference we can make together." But even as buzz and agreement swirled, an insidious thought slipped through the cracks of the moment, the fear that he would falter when the inevitable pushback arrived. The specter of failure loomed ever closer, whispering doubt into the corners of his mind. As the discussion wound down, Ethan caught Jack's eye across the conference room. There was no malice, only a strong current of caution. "I appreciate the initiative, Ethan," Jack finally spoke, his tone a reluctant truce. "Just remember, success or failure will rely on how well the execution is handled." Ethan nodded, reassured yet aware that this was merely the beginning. He needed to brace for the challenges Jack would undoubtedly throw his way. The victory of engaging his team wasn't the end of his struggle, rather, it unwrapped a new set of trials waiting to test both his resolve and his approach to leadership. Once the meeting adjourned, Ethan directly approached Marco. "Thanks for the encouragement back there. It made a difference," he said, an edge of sincerity in his voice. Marco grinned, but it didn't mask his own uncertainty. "You know what you're doing, Ethan. Just don't forget to listen to the people on your team. They matter." As he returned to his desk, a voice echoed within. This was no longer just about innovation. This was about him stepping out of the shadows of worry and into the light of assertiveness. But the weight of leadership felt daunting, and with every stride toward implementation, the unknown loomed. Ethan sat down, fingers hovering over his keyboard, preparation colliding with apprehension. He knew he had to act, to break the cycle of hesitation. The next step he took would not just determine the fate of the project but also shape his journey, a path fraught with uncertainty. The pressure mounted, but so did his determination. This was merely the prelude, the true test awaited him. Tomorrow he would confront Jack directly, armed not just with ideas, but with the realization that leadership required a willingness to face scrutiny head-on, and as he prepared for that inevitable confrontation, he couldn't shake the feeling this was the moment he started to discover who he could truly become. Would he transform the doubts into fuel for growth, or would he allow them to consume him? The answer was coming, and soon, he would find out. Ethan woke up early, the dawn light spilling into his room and breaking the darkness that clung to his mind. His rest had been fitful, filled with fragmented dreams where he stood before his team, stammering, overwhelmed by the weight of their expectations. But now, as he sat on the edge of his bed, brushing a hand through his hair, he resolved that today would be different. Today was a new beginning. That he brewed a strong cup of coffee, the rich aroma filling the air and pushing the remnants of his anxiety to the back of his mind. He took a moment to mentally prepare himself, recalling Marco's advice. Listening was a crucial skill he hadn't fully appreciated. He would need to cultivate an openness and experimental mindset that would not only foster innovation but also build trust. At the office, Ethan felt the buzz of anticipation mingling with the scent of freshly printed reports. His new team assembled, they appeared eager yet cautious as they gathered around the conference table. He was the leader now, and with that title came a set of unspoken expectations. The enormity of it all weighed on him, each pair of eyes a reminder of the responsibility resting squarely on his shoulders. "Thanks for joining me," Ethan started, his voice steadier than he felt. "Today, I want us to dive deeper into our pilot project. Let's discuss how we can implement the real-time diagnostic system and what metrics we should focus on." As he spoke, a sense of clarity began to replace the earlier chaos within him. Engagement flourished. Ideas bounced around the room, participants perking up as they contributed insights. Ethan observed their dynamic shift, gesturing to value their input, nodding as each team member presented, weaving their contributions into the larger vision he outlined, but just as he felt the momentum building, the door swung open. Jack entered, a tangible tension following him. Despite the shift in Ethan's demeanor, he sensed Jack's presence like a thunderstorm lurking on the horizon. "Interesting to see how you all are rallying behind this," Jack said, his tone laced with skepticism. "But how are you planning to address the implementation challenges? It's not as straightforward as it might appear on paper." Ethan's heart pounded. Jack's words cut like a knife, but rather than retreating, he leaned into the discomfort. "That's exactly why we're here today," he replied, channeling Marco's encouragement. "I want us to brainstorm those challenges together." The discussion morphed into a collaborative effort. Ethan watched as Jack posed tough questions, pushing the team to think deeper, and surprisingly, it bolstered their resolve rather than diminishing it. Ideas flew, solutions forming in real time while the shadows of doubt began to diminish, but then came a crucial moment. One of the newer team members, Maya, hesitated, literally absently tracing circles on her notes as if unsure whether to speak. Ethan sensed an opportunity, a revelation moment. "Maya, what are your thoughts?" Her eyes widened, surprise evident, but then her voice emerged, clear and assertive. "I think we should also incorporate user feedback into the pilot. We can take a more human-centered approach." Ethan felt a burst of excitement. It was refreshing. The comment illuminated a crucial component he had not considered. Her voice carried hidden depths, reflective of competency he had previously overlooked. "That's excellent, Maya. We need to understand the end users fully. Let us add that into our plans." As the meeting progressed, Ethan reveled in this new sense of empowerment, not just his own, but within the entire team. They moved beyond the fear of judgment, fostering an environment where everyone's voice mattered. However, amidst the collaborative spirit, Ethan couldn't shake off the impending confrontation with Jack. The atmosphere shifted as he sensed Jack's eyes scrutinizing him, weighing his every decision. Would this newfound approach hold up under Jack's critical lens? After the meeting, Ethan found a moment alone, staring at the chaos that lay across his desk. Tension gnawed at him. He felt the gravitational pull of doubt encroaching again. It would be all too easy to default to the anxious self who faltered each time the spotlight illuminated his vulnerability, yet, there was Maya's moment of contribution replayed in his mind. Perhaps his expectations of himself were too rigid. Perhaps he was meant to lead with vulnerability, not in armor. The day rolled forward, but his heart remained tethered to that question: how when facing Jack's scrutiny would he hold his ground? The moment approached, and with every tick of the clock, the whispering doubts grew louder. And then, as if to seal his fate, an email from Jack appeared in his inbox, its subject line simple yet imposing: "Let's talk about your proposal." Ethan's pulse quickened. The moment of truth approached, and amidst the biting edge of fear, he felt a flicker of resolve. He would not let uncertainty dictate his path any longer. Tomorrow would reveal whether he could navigate the storm that Jack represented or whether he would retreat back into the shadows of self-doubt. Ethan sat at his workstation the next day, his mind a flurry of thoughts as he awaited Jack's arrival. The weight of anticipation pressed down on him, but he summoned the confidence that had surged during the recent team meeting. This was his opportunity not just to defend his proposal but to stand firm in the authenticity of his journey toward becoming an automotive engineer. When Jack entered, Ethan noticed the familiar smirk on his rival's face, yet there was something different this time. Maybe it was the layered skepticism now intertwined with curiosity. "So, you think you're ready to take on the shop's legacy and implement your little experiment?" Jack leaned against the side of a tool bench, arms crossed, exuding a facade of nonchalance. Ethan felt a fire ignite within him. There was no need to hide behind insecurity. Today was about clarity. "Yes, I do," he responded, the steadiness in his voice surprising even himself. "I've taken the time to gather insights from everyone, and we're committed to making this work for the entire team." He watched Jack's expression shift, a glimmer of interest breaking through the skepticism. The first step was already taken. Ethan leaped into the specifics, detailing their discussions about user feedback and the pilot project's timeline. Each point he presented was met with measured silence from Jack, who was now actively listening, absorbing the vision Ethan fervently articulated. "We're using this pilot not just to advance technology, but to redefine how our work can better serve our customers and improve our lives here at the shop." Jack finally uncrossed his arms, shifting slightly. "And what makes you think your idea will actually matter? This isn't just theory, these are real-world applications that come with real-world consequences." Ethan stood firm. "Exactly. And that's why we're going to execute the pilot carefully. If we fall short, we'll adjust. Just as in engineering, sometimes things don't go as planned. But the key is to learn from every failure." A flicker of respect crossed Jack's eyes. "You've thought this through. I'll give you that." A swell of hope rose within Ethan. This wasn't merely about winning Jack over, it was about proving to himself that he had the competence to lead. He leaned into the conversation, expanding on mechanisms for measuring success, stakeholder involvement, and potential adjustments based on the feedback. Jack began to engage not with ridicule, but with real, substantive questions that spun the discussions deeper into technical analyses. As the meeting wore on, Jack's demeanor softened, revealing a more collaborative spirit. Federalizing his authority and leading with humility, Ethan found even more confidence in his approach. In a pivotal moment, Jack offered a suggestion that enhanced their project's scope. "If you're serious about building support, why not involve our clients in the feedback stage? Real users can provide insights that we might overlook." Ethan's heart raced. "That's brilliant. I hadn't considered their perspective as part of our pilot." Acknowledging Jack's contribution lifted a weight off both their shoulders. As they discussed further, Ethan could feel the lines of rivalry blurring into something more resembling respect and evolution that mirrored his journey of growth. They were not just individuals in competition, they were together steering the shop into a more innovative future. After the meeting, something shifted within Ethan. He knew he had matured through this process, a sense of achievement coursed through him like adrenaline. He was running away from the legacy his father had built, he was redefining it on his own terms. Later that evening, Ethan returned home, his heart lighter than it had been in years. Nestled in the newly forged connection with his colleagues and, most surprisingly, Jack, he felt the clarity of purpose envelop him. He had embarked on a journey toward personal and professional growth, one no longer dictated by the shadows of his insecurities. As the sunset painted the sky in brilliant hues of orange and purple, Ethan realized he had not only confronted his fears, he had transformed them into fuel for success. He had achieved a newfound confidence in his position as an emerging leader, one willing to embrace innovation and foster collaboration. Faced with challenges ahead, Ethan was no longer simply a mechanic, he was an engineer in the making. Each obstacle signified an opportunity for further growth. The prospect of enrolling in advanced courses, exploring complex engineering theories, and becoming a pioneering voice in the automotive landscape awaited him. This moment epitomized his transition, the leap he had feared becoming a freefall transformed into an exhilarating flight. He had proven to himself that he could forge a path of ambition, creativity, and resilience. Ethan smiled to himself, the flame of determination ignited. He was ready to embrace his future wholeheartedly. The path ahead was bright, filled with aspirations, and he would continue to conquer each challenge, building not just machines but legacies of innovation. It was time to make his mark, time to push the boundaries of personal achievement. Now, dear viewers, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. It truly makes a difference. I want to hear your voice, so comment with your reactions and theories about how Ethan's adventure will continue. And please, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share the journey of personal overcoming stories. Your allies are out there, too.